Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
And welcome again to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And I'm Phil Thompson. Good to be with you again as we do our weekly podcast. We are a tech company, and what's the name of our tech company?
We are JSL Solutions.
I try to fool him every time, or trick him, I should say. JSL Solutions is the name of our company, and we do
live streaming with streamingchurch.tv, mobile apps through Church App Live, and myflock.com.
We love helping churches and ministries. That's why we are here, and we do a weekly podcast because we talk about technology, but we also talk about other things that are ministry related because we want to help enable the church and bring some information out there for people that will help volunteers, help leaders, help pastors. So we're so glad that you have decided to spend some time with us today, and we have a special guest with us today.
Yes, we do.
And his name is?
David Drum. Or do you go by
David.
Dave?
I go by both.
Okay.
Yeah, I go by a lot of things, but we can't talk about that.
All right. Well, David, Steve and I have such great chemistry. We've only been doing this for 9 years. But David is a good friend of ours. He's been a long-time pastor in the community of Tucson, Arizona.
Yes.
And how many years has it been now since you've been in this different part of your ministry life?
6.5 years.
6.5 years with the organization called For Tucson.
The number 4 Tucson. Yep.
And you can look that up. For those of you keeping score at home, just go to the number 4 TUCSON.com, fortucson.com, and you can find out all about. Well, we had you on a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how you can make positive change in your community. Really enjoyed the interview we had here, and we kind of wanted to move forward with this. But let's recap a little bit about what in the world is For Tucson.
So For Tucson is a city transformation strategy. If I put it in 3 words, those would be the words. It's a city transformation strategy. So we want to see our community of Tucson, and it would be transferable to any community, right. But we want to see our community of Tucson be transformed in such a way that every person who's living here could reach their full potential, and that God would be the one who gets the glory for that positive transformation.
Okay. And to break this down into bite-sized pieces, yep. You guys have what you guys call 12 different domains.
Right. So we have a 2-part strategy. The first part of that is our 12 domains. So when Jesus said, you are the light of the world and you are the salt of the earth, he wasn't talking about being salt and light just within the church. Okay. He was talking about being salt and light in the community. And so we've broken that into 12 different domains or spheres of influence. Okay. And so
the last time we quizzed you on this.
Yes, well, and I'll do better with the thing in front of me. But I can get there, but I can't do it like alphabetically because I only know it as I go around the org chart. And it's not on here. So
you can look on the cheat sheet.
I'll use the cheat sheet. So our 12 domains are business, environment, justice, prayer, church, government, media, arts, social services, education, healthcare, philanthropy, and sports. So almost anything, to date, anything anybody can mention, we'll tie it to one of those 12 domains.
Anything going on in a particular town.
Anything going on in a particular town can fit into one of those areas. So we want to see in each of those 12 areas, Christians come together and be salt and light in that sphere of influence. So we need Christian influence in business, and we need it in government, and we need it in social services, and we need it in sports. So the first part of the strategy then is just uniting Christians within each of those spheres of influence.
Okay. All right, good. And so the reason we're doing this on the podcast, because we believe that, and you believe, and I would agree with you, that this is something that could be done in any city, any community.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't know how far along we were in the planning in the last podcast, but we have our very first national For Tucson conference coming up the last Saturday of January, because some national organizations have noticed and been following the work that's been happening here, and have said in fact, the Luis Palau organization has said that it was their idea. They want to bring some leaders from other cities around the country to Tucson to be a part of our conference. So that exactly what we're talking about, this strategy is transferable and it would work in any community.
You ever thought about streaming this on the internet?
That's a great idea. We should look at that.
Yeah, we know a company that does streaming video.
Okay, we should probably talk. Yeah.
So how many cities have such an organization, or what percentage of the towns may have something similar or not? Or what is this?
Well, there's two different ways of answering that. There's something called Movement Day, which started in New York about 8 years ago, relatively new.
Okay.
And we just had the first Arizona Movement Day last year. So they're kind of now starting to decentralize it. But what they call it are gospel, what's their term? Gospel movements, but focused on a city. And so there were over 300 cities from North America that were represented at the last one of those that I attended, which was about 4 years ago. Now, so what that means is that in 300 cities in North America, there is, at some level, a group of people that are wanting to see something in this general area happening. Mm-hmm. Right. What's unique to For Tucson as far as we know, so the other way of answering the question is, the two-part strategy that we have, these 12 domains, there's lots of cities. When I was at Movement Day, I went 2 years in a row, I heard of what we call our domain wheel, those 12 domains. Right. I heard that concept in dozens of cities. So the concept is not unique at all to Tucson. What is unique is that we're staffing it, and we're saying we want a full-time Christian organizing that effort. There's not another city that we know of that's doing that. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of the strategy, which is it takes all 12 of those domains working together to solve systemic problems that cities have struggled with over generations.
So you said staff. Does that mean paid staff?
Correct.
Oh, it does.
Paid staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive then.
We have about 20 staff, not all full-time right now. Yeah. But there's about 20 on our team. And so the second part, where you get all 12 of those domains, you get enough Christians to where there's momentum and connection in each of those domains, but then you get all of those folks helping to move the needle on, for instance, poverty in a city. It takes all 12 of the domains working together to solve that. So when we talk about city transformation, we're talking about it from a very significant, measurable standpoint. It's not some vague concept. Mm-hmm. We don't want to see Tucson as the 6th poorest city in our country any longer. Mm-hmm. And in 10 years, we believe it won't be, and we believe that our strategy is going to be part of the reason why that's true.
So you said two-pronged, just going back here. So the 12 domains is the first part of this.
And then what we call a task force or focus area is the second prong, which is you get all 12 of those working together to solve a systemic issue, such as poverty reduction.
Okay.
Yep. So we're the only city that we know of that is going at city transformation at that kind of a level. And that's the reason that the Palau Association suggested that it was time. We've learned enough. We've got enough momentum. We have enough tangible, on-the-ground stories that it's not just theory, that they felt it was time that we needed to tell this story and see if we can't seed it in some other areas.
As this conference is coming together, who are the people that would be attending? Would it be, I mean, we obviously have pastors of churches listening to the podcast, but it's a level above your church, definitely, right?
It is.
So,
really, I would say there's a couple of groups of people that might be interested in attending. Anybody who would love to see their city bring honor and glory to Jesus would be welcome to come. They'd be encouraged, because we have some very specific real life live stories that are working in our city. And so they'd find that encouraging. Some of those people might also be the kind of entrepreneurial type folks that really are better equipped than, say, a pastor of a church would be to make something like this happen. A church pastor certainly could come, especially if it's a pastor who has come to a place where they recognize that no matter how effective they are as a congregation, they alone will not be able to change their city. So any pastor that has come to that realization would be a great person to come to something like this, because they'll see ways, tangible ways, that they could work with other folks, not only other churches, but Christians in business and nonprofits and all through the city, to really make a tangible difference in their community. And you can start smaller than this. We're going for the problems. We literally have 22 of them identified that have been listed in city and county planning documents for decades as the issues in our city that nobody has been able to solve.
Right. And
they show up in every planning document every decade, and so that's what we're going after.
Yeah,
we want to see that
they're not
change.
Unique to Tucson.
They are not.
Right.
Some of them would be. Water is that's a Tucson issue that's not going to be an issue everywhere.
Right.
But most of them are the issues that, what community would not want quality of life, pro-family government, racial reconciliation. Every community is going to want some of those things.
Right. So we've got some time here. So and again, this conference, I wanted to drill down a little more because I know you guys are working with the poverty reduction area. So I want to talk about that. But before I forget, so this conference that you're having is in January of 2018. And what's the date again?
It is January the 27th. Okay. It's a Saturday, the last Saturday of the month. Is the all-day conference, and then that Friday night, for anybody who would be coming from out of town, is a city leaders dinner and celebration that'll help. It's kind of a conference at two different levels. So for people in Tucson, their reason for coming is that when they leave at the end of the day Saturday, we're going to take two of these 22 areas, poverty reduction and education, and we believe that we can show how every person who comes from Tucson has a part to play in poverty reduction and education. And it may not mean that they do anything that they're not already doing, but they'll do it in a different light than what they've been doing it. And so our measure of the success of the conference is literally going to be that at the end of the day, we're going to ask people to write down my part of poverty reduction is, and if they can fill it in, then we've been successful. Okay. So that's the one part of the conference. Then for people coming from out of town, there's a city leaders track that's going to weave in and out of what we're doing that's Tucson focused.
So this conference is in Tucson. Where's it at in Tucson?
It's at Star Pass Resort.
Okay.
In the west side of town.
Right.
And if you go to our website, fortucson.com, the title of the conference is Together for Tucson.
Okay.
And you'll find all the information there, including hotel and everything that a person might want. There's group discounts and everything.
Okay. What is the cost?
It's about $100 a person. Okay. And that includes meals.
Okay. So we have time here. What you guys are doing is so... Well, it's not really complicated, but to explain it, it takes a little bit of time. So we've burned 13 minutes here. But we have about another 10 minutes or so to talk a little bit about something a little deeper, going down a little deeper, and that would be the poverty reduction aspect of this. Right. I think everybody's interested in that, or it should be, for their communities. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing in this one area of poverty reduction.
So let me start by just pointing out something that would be true in every community in our country and really around the world. If you were to ask a person in the business domain or sphere of influence, what's it take to solve poverty, they're probably going to talk about the need for strong employment. And if you were to talk to somebody in social services, they might talk about the need for some support network, transitional housing. Sure. Education is going to talk about the need for a good, strong education. Healthcare is going to talk about the mental health aspect of poverty, on and on. So it's my contention, and I know I'm not alone in this, that Tucson didn't get to be the 6th poorest city in the country because we've never had smart leaders before. I don't think that's our issue at all. We've had a lot of smart people. I don't think it's because we haven't had committed pastors and Christian leaders in our city, because we have. What we've not ever had is a way of all of those people pulling on the same end of the rope, because if you only try to solve the mental health aspect without paying attention to the education and business aspect, what works in one area can have unintended consequences in other areas, and that's what we've been doing for generations. I was born in Tucson, so I'm speaking experientially, not just theoretically. We've chased our tail on this forever. And so it really takes people in every domain working together. So that's the concept behind these, is that you need representatives from all of those domains who would sit at a table in a task force type understanding. And the first part of that then is we do some research. And so we've done research in the area of poverty reduction specific to Tucson, but also general research on the causes and sources of poverty. And that's where it starts. And then we're looking for biblical solutions. So there's actually quite a bit of material in the scriptures on poverty and some biblical causes for poverty and so forth. So that helps to inform it. We're unapologetically a Christian organization. You don't have to believe like I believe to care about what I care about. So we'll work alongside government officials or anybody that has a piece of the solution, but we're going to do it from a Christian worldview. That's what's our driver. And so the research, interestingly enough, well, back up one more step. We created about 120-page research, deep level, using all of the science of research and everything else, report on poverty. And it's everybody in the city and on up to some state levels has asked for a copy of this document, because it's the most extensive research done on poverty that anybody has seen. In our city. So it's broken down into neighborhoods and zip codes, and it's an extensive research document on poverty in our city. The same way that anybody else could do it, it's just that we said we're going to do that. There's been a number of studies that have suggested that if 3 conditions are met, you have between a 98 and 99% chance of never landing in below middle class. So you meet these 3 conditions and you have a 98.5% likelihood that you will be in the middle class or above.
So do share.
Yes, tell her. I need to hear this.
Yeah. So the first one is graduate from high school.
Okay.
The second one is get a job, which it sounds kind of like, circular type argument, but it's not saying that it has to be a $75,000 a year job. It just says get full-time employment.
All right.
So graduate from high school, get a job, and wait until you're married to have children.
So if you do
those 3 things, you graduate from high school, you secure a job, and you wait until you're married to have children, you have a 98.5% probability of landing in the middle class or above.
Wow. I think I've heard this before.
Well,
this has been...
It's not unique to Tucson,
right.
Correct. But you may have heard it here because we shared it a year ago, and so that has kind of rippled through our city. So we've shared it with some other leaders around town because they've asked, and everybody's in agreement on the first 2. Everybody's all over, yep, we need people to graduate from high school. Everybody wants that. We need people to have a job. Everybody wants that. But we've had a number of secular leaders say, I'm not touching the last one with a 10-foot pole. Well, that's part of the reason why we're unapologetically a Christian organization. Not only for Christian reasons, but plenty of others. Right. But we're going to advocate that we'd like to see policies that encourage us to wait to have children until we're married. It's better for everybody.
Yeah, and that's not, it's not, these Christian organizations threw this one in because that's what they believe. This is what the research data shows.
Absolutely.
That those that have at least those 3 conditions met or not in the poverty.
Yeah, so you don't
it's
necessarily have to like that stipulation for any number of different reasons if a person doesn't want to like it, but you're arguing with the data. The data says
it's not a bias of this Christian
it has
organization.
nothing to do with chapter and verse.
Right.
That part is based on research.
So why is that? I mean, you're a pastor. You're more than 20 years old. You've been here for a long time. Why is it then that if people will get married and then have kids, why does that get them into that 98% or whatever of getting out of poverty?
Well, probably the easiest way to address that would be to just argue it from reverse. So, what's family life going to look like if you don't have two parents? It's a single parent family. Whatever the circumstances around that, well, it's going to be harder. Employment is going to be an issue. If the children are young, you're going to have childcare, which is extremely expensive. When you are raised in a single-parent family, the likelihood of you graduating from high school dramatically drops, probably for some really practical reasons. Your parent is working to try to get you through. They're not as available to help with homework. I mean, there's just really practical things that you start putting together, and it's not rocket science that says that if you wait to have children until you're married, that's a much more stable environment that's going to be much more conducive to health in a lot of different areas, education in a lot of very practical areas, and then future employment. So I don't think that a person would have to work too hard to come up with their own list of reasons why that makes sense.
What's the, and you may not know this, but what's the divorce rate in Tucson? I mean, nationally, it's what, 50%?
It's about 50%. At one point, it was over 60% in Tucson, but that's at least 20 years ago. I've heard that it's dropped and is closer to the national average, but I don't know that for solid.
Well, and then you have the other argument. I've heard somebody say, well, that's, and I've heard them say, and we're getting off track here probably, but I'll just go this direction, that for those who are really committed Christians, the 50% rate is not accurate, that the divorce rate's actually lower.
I've heard that if both the husband and the wife, I mean, to get it really, really granular, if both husband and wife are an active part of a worshiping community as defined by at least 3 out of 4 Sundays, they are worshiping together in the same church.
Right.
So put all those stipulations together, that the divorce rate is under 15%.
Under 15. Interesting. Okay. All right.
Right. So let's dig deeper on
Sure.
this. So we've got this one that we just picked on, which was have kids after you're married.
Right.
So this task force comes together, and what kind of do you just make this information available that don't do this, or do you say here's some things that families can consider so that they does it go to the next step or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the purpose of the task force then is to be able to take that research and say, all right, what's already happening in our community to help people graduate from high school? Mm-hmm. What's already happening in our community to help people secure employment? What's already happening to help people wait until they're married to have a child? Where are there gaps? So if it's already happening, how can we push some resources to reinforce that? Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Christian organization. There's plenty of non-Christian organizations that are doing great work in helping people graduate from high school. Well, great. We want to support that. Right. We're all on the same team. This is our strategy. There can be some other things that could be useful, and we're not saying those are bad. We're going to organize around those 3 goals. Now, for instance, wait till you're married to have children. So Hands of Hope, a very active crisis pregnancy center organization in our city, has a whole abstinence-based program that they do in schools that's more than just abstinence, but just talks about positive values. Well, they have more opportunities than they have volunteers. So that's a great example where if we could funnel some more volunteers into that organization, that program would have even more impact in our community. Then we look for the places where there's gaps. Well, is there a population of the community that nobody's really serving in any of those three areas. Well, then let's create that and help make that happen. But we're looking at a comprehensive view. What would help move the needle in those three areas? And if we do, then we can prove that we'll move the needle in poverty reduction in the next generation.
Wow.
So how long do you think it's going to? You think it's like a generation?
Some of it, I really believe that that we will see the statistics change. I'm confident that we'll see the statistics change in 10 years, and very possibly in 5. I think we're going to see the statistics change next year, because there's already some things that are helping on the securing employment area. The Tucson has had the best job growth news in the last year of any of the last 30, with some of the Rio Nuevo downtown development and Caterpillar moving their headquarters here. And there's just a lot of positive traction. And I think there's some natural reasons for that, but I also think there's some supernatural reasons for that.
Good. All right. So we're out of time.
Oh, wow. We just got started.
Well, I know, and that's why we'll need to make you a regular person here. But I want to push your book. David's actually got a couple, 2 or 3 books.
2 books.
All right, and the latest one is called If It Was Easy, Jesus Wouldn't Have Prayed for It. And you can get this on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. It's also on the For Tucson website. If you look for the store button on the homepage, you'll find it.
If It Was Easy, Jesus Wouldn't Have Prayed for It by David Drum, our guest today. And again, we'll push the website for the number 4 for Tucson, Tucson, because if you're out of town, everybody misspells Tucson. So fortucson.com. And the actual conference in January, the end of January, the 27th. Did I get that right?
Saturday, the 27th.
That's
26th,
actually called Together for Tucson, and you're welcome to come to Tucson and enjoy our fine city and enjoy the climate here, which is wonderful in January.
It's pretty nice.
All right. So if you're interested in that or you just want to check it out, fortucson.com is the place to go. David, we're always grateful for you and what you guys are doing, and you're a wonderful guest.
My pleasure. Thanks for what you guys are doing, and it's an honor to be able to chat with you for a while.
Good. All right. Well, as I said, we are out of time, and the guy across the table is Steve Lacy. We've been talking with Pastor David Drum, and I'm Phil Thompson. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today. Take care. We'll catch you next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.